What you doing, readers? I'm the AC, and I'm going to talk about the book One Piece Ace's Story, Book 2 by Eiichiro Oda, written by Tatsuya Hamazaki. This second book of the series came out on September 1st, 2020. Been really looking forward to it. Really like the way they did the first book. I liked what was in this book. I'm not exactly sure if I liked how they did the second book, but I'll get to that in a bit. What this book goes through is it pretty much starts when Ace and the rest of the Spade Pirates get to the New World through Fishman Island until they officially join the Whitebeard Pirates. And just like the other one, we know pretty much that's what was going to happen. Because if you watched anime, read the manga, we know where Ace is at. This is kind of just telling up to the point of how he gets there and the key points of what happens in between. But the way they wrote this book, it feels like book 1 and 2 should just been one book together. Because there's only going to be 2 books. Might as well stuck them together. And I feel like it would have been a lot better way to read it. Then there wouldn't have to be any recap in this book. Even though it's brief, like you wouldn't need to re-say it. Just keep it together. The first one's really short. This one is a little longer. I feel like it just would have been better as one read, one book. Okay. Also, the first one, even though it was shorter, it had more extra stuff in it. This one, it has no extras. There's no pictures or bios, none of that extra stuff in this one that was in the first. Also, the first one pretty much tells you exactly what's going to happen in this one. There's only one thing in this book that wasn't told in the first book. It's kind of a weird thing. The previews of the first one pretty much spoil what happens in this one. Now, like I said, I liked what I read in it. It's just how I read it, I wasn't sure. The other thing about it is, the first one is written from like if Deuce was the narrator, if like he's the one writing out Ace's tale. It seems like this one forgets that. Deuce is in it like a couple times. Just a little bit to be a voice of reason in Ace. Really hardly any. He's hardly in it. And yeah, it's Ace's story, so of course it's going to go around where Ace is. But the first one set us up for this, like, oh, this is all going to be from Deuce's perspective of Ace. Maybe that's why they put it in 2 books, because the first one had that kind of perspective. The second one had a more, just a general narrative to it. The other thing, there's no real action. The first one had some. This one pretty much has no real action. It talks about how they did something, but that's it. It just mentions that, like, some fight happened. And it just skips over the whole fight. And yeah, I understand this. It's okay. Otherwise, these books would be really long. There'd be a whole other series. I said this in my first video about if they told Ace's story, it will pretty much just end up being like Luffy's. It'll be really long. A lot of stuff happened. Really cool. But that'll be a whole nother 900 episode anime, a decades long manga series. It'll just go on forever. So I understand why they cut this, but no real action also made it seem like there was no real conflicts. The people he does fight, or they says that he fights, are characters we already know. We know how that already plays out. Regardless of if you read the first book or not, if you watch anime or read the manga, you already know how that works. There was only one real conflict, and it only lasted for part of a chapter. That's it. So, yeah, I feel like I'm a bit negative on my feelings towards both of these books, because like I said, they should be one book together. But I do like what I read. It's how I read it. So, that's going to be my take on it, my little review. Let me actually talk about what happens, because I did like what happens. I just wanted more of what happens. Okay, so, first, it's this whole thing throughout it is people are talking about how Ace turned down an offer to be a warlord, and everyone's just kind of buzzing around that. You know, Ace kind of has this ego, but he also doesn't really know what he's doing. We see that throughout the book. He's not sure what he wants to do. He knows he doesn't want to be like his father. He doesn't want to be the king of pirates. He doesn't care about finding the One Piece. he just wants to prove himself as strong as something. He just doesn't know what that is. So, his first stop into the new world is Fishman Island. He has a nice little meal there, burns down the flag. He sees Whitebeard's flag that protects the area, burns it down because that's the first of the 4 emperors he sees. He decides that's going to be his first target. But before he goes to do that, he meets Shanks along the way. And only to meet with him to thank him for saving Luffy when they were kids and just pretty much just to introduce themselves. And then he also tells them that he's going to challenge Whitebeard. And this whole thing. Now, this whole time, there's like a pirate code, the way they do things, traditions, stuff like that. And Ace is sticking to that, which is weird. Maybe it's because people he's talking to are pirates. He wants to respect them. But it's also like he doesn't really want to be a pirate. He just wants to prove himself. But yeah, he's really sticking to these like piratey things. So it's this weird thing. The next encounter he has is with Jinbei. Like I said, we already know who Jinbei is. But apparently they fight for 5 days. 5 straight days. Not exactly sure how that happens. And they seem to be on equal footing. At this point, Jinbei is still one of the warlords. But he's like, has this connection with Whitebeard. He kind of owes him. Of course, Whitebeard protects Fishman Island. Jinbei's a fisherman, so this happens. But around the time their fight is ending, Whitebeard shows up. Pretty much just stomps out any other fight that Ace had in him. But he takes Ace in. Takes care of him a little bit. Doesn't hold him prisoner or any of his crew. He actually, gets his crew and puts them throughout his fleet so they can start helping out. But Ace is really determined to beat Whitebeard. But he loses over and over again. A lot. Like, no problem, no competition at all. They compare it to Whitebeard just swatting a fly away. Is that easy? Seems really hopeless for Ace. But, no, it's really cool to see more of Whitebeard and how powerful he is. Because you don't see that much in the other manga and anime. So it's cool to see this, power dynamic that they have. Eventually they make a deal. Going back to like the pirate code, Ace is like, okay, he's been fed and pretty much taken care of. Now he owes a debt to Whitebeard. So he makes a Whitebeard saying he wants to prove himself and put Whitebeard in debt to him. So he's going to work off his food and do something big to make Whitebeard owe him. That way he can get a final fight against Whitebeard. And then after this agreement's made, Thatch, one of the division leaders, he kind of makes the deal a little more conflicting, I guess. He says after he loses 100 times, Ace will have to give up. And he says if he can't beat him 100 times, he won't be able to beat him 1,000, which maybe he would have, but who knows. And Ace has to take the deal. Okay, so next is when the actual conflict of the book happens near the end for only part of the chapter. Ace shows up to this place called Port Gibraltar. And it's another place under Whitebeard's protection, but the guy who made the deal with Whitebeard died, so now his son, Oliva, I think that's how you say the name, never quite sure, takes charge. He looks kind of like a gorilla, they keep saying, but the real conflict is they're dealing in slaves, and one of Whitebeard's things is no drugs, no slaves, because you can be a pirate and still, not be a bad person. Yeah, and so this is Ace's chance to prove himself to Whitebeard, to get Whitebeard in his debt, whatever. And so they do this whole scheme to like sneak in, pretend they're like selling a mermaid as a slave. And like, it starts to work, but then it kind of, they get all the information they need, and it kind of works. But then when the action actually starts happening, Ace isn't around. Ace gets taken a different area. By the time he comes back, it's already over because of Marshall P. Teach. And he busts out of the box he was hiding in, takes care of pretty much everyone, and that's pretty much it. That's all. The part we could have had action with, it was gone. It was just nothing. And yeah, you gotta get over it. But this is also another weird time where we get to see that Teach actually is more threatening in these books than in the manga or the anime. To me, when I was watching and reading the manga and anime, it seemed like Teach only seemed threatening once he got his devil fruit. After that, he just seemed kind of, I don't know, like he was there. But no, he seems like he was actually a pretty strong pirate already. So it was cool to see that too. And of course, we know where Teach's story goes, and Thatch's and all these other people. So, yeah, it was kind of nice to see these beginning and see how strong they already are. But yeah, so this conflict ends, kind of, but Ace gets to go back, has this 100th fight with Whitebeard, of course loses, not really doing anything, and he decides to join Whitebeard. He talks over his crew saying this was his decision, they all agree because they're following him. And so, they have a nice ceremony just to, officially have the Spade Pirates or Ace's crew be part of Whitebeard's crew. And this is also where Ace says he's going to get the tattoo on his back. It's a whole lot of nice things. It was a really official and kind of a beautiful ceremony kind of thing, because it's like Whitebeard being a father taking in a son that is Ace, and of course all the rest of his crew. So yeah, it was a really nice thing to see. And then that's it. It stops right when Ace is officially part of Whitebeard's. And I guess there's not really need for another book since we know where the rest goes on. But we get a bunch of flashbacks that see Ace has gone all over. I mean, there was a flashback showing that he was in Wano country. I don't know, there's a lot of more of Ace's stories that could be told. Maybe there'll be more one day. Who knows? But what did you think? Did you read these books and enjoy them? Did you thought there should have been more? I think there should have been more. Of course there should have been more. But yeah, go ahead and let me know what you thought in the comments. Like it, hate it, whichever it is you're thinking. And if you like this video, go ahead and give the video a like. If you want to see me talk more about what I'm reading and all this other stuff, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. You can see when I do all that. But until next time, I'm the AC. Thank you for watching, and bye.